You can't bring your village type.
Hi, good night, good night, good night. And we are live in Tobago Updates television studios. And on this wonderful Emancipation Eve, I welcome you to For the Hour. My name is Edison Thomas. I will be guiding the discussion this afternoon. All right? And this afternoon discussion, we continue the analysis of the situation that is currently unfolding before us between the Tobago House of Assembly and the central government. All right? Don't want to backtrack too far, but small, short synopsis. The audio tape or the recording was released. We analyzed that and its content. After that, Fali addressed it in a press conference. We also analyzed that, and recently there was a special THA sitting also to let out some information where a whistleblower came forward and gave out some information. We also analyzed that, and not to forget that we also had senior THO officials being investigated by the TTPS, all right, which we also analyzed. Right? But we continue the analysis because it's important for Tobago to really understand and keep abreast of what is going on with its government and its relations with Trinidad, etc. All right, so to discuss tonight's discussion is going to be around, is there misbehavior in the THA? All right, and to discuss tonight's topic, we have on our panel shortly. We have our panel Mr. Anthony James, no stranger to the show. All right. We have Mr. Maxlon Roberts, and also we have Mr. Kurt Wilson. Gentlemen, good night, good night. Good to have you on the show.
Good night, thanks. The opportunity.
All right.
Always a pleasure being
All
here.
right. All right, so gentlemen, again, everything that we're going to discuss tonight, we have analyzed and discussed before. But as new developments come out, we always have to make the linkages, right? We have to go back a little bit to see how the previous information is relevant to now, all right? And so we want to track it back a little bit to the audio tape that was released initially, all right, which had now confirmed to be the Chief Secretary, Mr. Fali Chavez Augustin, as well as the Secretary for DIRTEC, Ms. Zorisha Hackett, Assemblyman Zorisha Hackett, discussing matters pertaining to persons being hired on the side of the government or the THA and being used to spread or to build out a propaganda machine. All right. So just wanted to air that out amongst you guys first before we move forward into what is the meat of the discussion tonight. All right, so we're going to start with Mr. Wilson, and I just wanted to hear your thoughts because you're new to the panel to me, right? So I don't think that we ever had the chance to discuss it before. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on what you heard in the audio recording.
Yes. Thanks once more for the privilege and opportunity to be here. How I see it, I look at things from a straightforward point of view. Okay? All right, so there, you look at the facts, all right? So there's a tape that was emanated. The voices that were heard were that of the Chief Secretary and the Secretary for Education, all right? Now, based on the discussion that they were having, it is clear that they were discussing something, something of relevance, some plan of action to be executed. Having said that and found that within the audio tape, I am saying that coming publicly and saying, yes, this was my voice and the voice of my colleagues, really puts the icing on the cake as to say, well, yes. So we have nothing else there to really dissect. Now it's for the authorities to find out whether or not there was any wrongdoing, and if so be the case, let the chips fall where they may. That's my take on it.
All right, Mr. Roberts.
Well, it's indeed a pleasure being here. Emancipation Eve, a very instructive time, and the conversation is an interesting one because we all heard the tape and but I think some people are playing light with what was being discussed or the intent, because the intent is what is startling to me in terms of using misinformation, shaping the narrative. We're dealing with we're in emancipation now, and it was a tactic used then. Shape the narrative or use language or use misinformation to have you remain in a particular mindset. And to see in 2023 that philosophy, that underpinning philosophy still exists and is operating at that level. It is, to me, it is bothering, because we're supposed to be at a place where we're trying to liberate or emancipate, free our minds, not shape, give people misinformation to shape a particular context. And if I don't think people understand how dangerous that is. That's a dangerous tool, to do that, because when you feed people propaganda or misinformation, and you allow persons to operate based on the misinformation you would have given them, everything is off. And if now, whether it was executed or not, that's what the authorities are, I guess, are investigating now. But and so it's cause for concern. Conversation like that being had at the upper level, at the top level, where we're supposed to be thinking about advancing Tobago and moving Tobago, taking our people from one stage to our next into transition, and this is the kind of thinking that is permeating at the top level. It's cause for serious concern.
Right. Well, Mr. James, I'll give you a chance, but I know you already said it and analyzed and everything, but I'll give you a chance to even later.
Well, I'm quite impressed by the contribution of my two colleagues. I have said so much on that, but at the core of the scheme is selfishness. There was no representation of Tobago in that, as the brother here was saying, lifting Tobago from where Tobagonians are, and instructive relevant because tonight is what they call emancipation, a event which I think is also misobserved and misrepresented, right? Because real emancipation, as he said, is really about moving people from one level to another level. It really deals with liberation because you see, the Tobago context, the context of Tobago politics is really is that Tobagonians we have found ourselves trapped in system, and bondage is a system. Therefore, just as how freedom is a system, and freedom carries responsibility, and that really that should really form the context of anybody who is contesting election and holding political office in Tobago. The idea clearly is not about shaping narrative and misinformation, fake profile. The whole tone of that exchange that we all heard was really selfishness. In the entire tape that was released, we heard nothing about promoting Tobagonians and lifting us out from the bondage and the context in which we have now found ourselves. Because previously we were colonized by the Europeans and lastly by the British, and now we are now colonized by Trinidad. Every Tobagonian knows that because Tobago is still a ward and administrative ward of Trinidad. We know that, right? And that is what now should shape the same narrative that you're talking. That is what you shape. But there is no evidence, even in the Let's Talk Tobago program and so on, there is no evidence that there is a narrative from the regime which is leading Tobago forward and so on.
But we can see again, as I tend to kind of slightly agree with your take there, Mr. James, in that the platform upon which we voted for that administration would have been to advance Tobago to another stage of self-determination, right? I don't want to use all the fancy words, but self-determination, right? And so, for me, and I put a bit of my little personal thing here, it was a little bit shocking to me to hear that there was such a grab for power and holding on power there when we should be really, But moving on from there, we have when Mr. Augustine came out and he had the press conference with the executive council behind in full support, right? He came out and he had basically admitted to being the person identified on the tape. However, he did say that he did not action, right? He did not action what was said on the tape. And so there was a plan, and he said that all of the plans have to be, or all of the options have to be aired out for strategy-wise, right? And we have to consider all options. But he did say that that one was considered, but it wasn't actioned, right? Are we to take the Chief Secretary's word there? That's the question I want to ask the panel. Are we to take the Chief Secretary's word there? Was it action? Was it not action? What does the panel think? I will start with you, Mr. Wills. Go ahead.
As I said before, I'm a straightforward guys. I give you the facts. Okay? Now you remember this, it's what was said. And if you listen clearly on the tape, they were planning to, as my colleagues will allude to, shaping narrative to maintain the slavery upon certain Tobagonians and their thinking. And thereafter, 24 days after, I think, 23 days after, the Chief Secretary did come out and say, well, and yes, that was my voice. And we were strategizing at different meetings and whatever the case may be. I personally believe, this is just my thoughts, I personally believe that he's trying to shape the narrative, just as he said. He's trying now to let Tobagonians believe that although I did have the conversation with my team, we didn't enact it. But the facts are showing differently.
Okay. Right.
All right? So that is where I am saying now that it is a bit sketchy to really come out and say, I will believe it. I will wait until the investigation is complete. All right? And then let the chips fall within it.
Mr. Robert.
Well, I would just say to that in terms of what you asked, could we take the chiefs at his word? He said that was a executive council meeting in the earlys, right?
Yeah, he did.
And then that changed.
Yeah. Changed after,
Because of
yeah.
other information. So if I couldn't take, I'm very simple. If I couldn't take your word then, which one to believe? All right, let me put it this way. Which one to believe? Out of those two scenarios, which one should I believe? So to say that it wasn't action,
So you're saying basically there are other details that he let out during that same time.
that contradicted what you said in the initial
that
stages?
information came out after that contradicted it in the first place. So the statements other statements that you made, they're not really believable in that sense.
And I'm sure I could find a number of other things that were said outside of regarding the audio and all of that, but that was said, but yet still not implemented, that they said they would have done and not implemented. So I tend to take things for face value as they are. How the saying goes? Fool me once, shame on you. Shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you.
Yeah.
I am hesitant to be fooled twice.
Mr. James.
Let me see. Out of the abundance of the heart,
Okay.
the scripture says, out of the abundance of the heart, speak it, the mouth. It is not what goes into a man that defiles the man, but it's what comes out of a man that defiles. That's how you get to know people. You get to know them by the fruits, by the words. You might be seeing a person from a distance and so on, but it's only when you start to interact and exchange ideas with the person, then you really get to know the substance of the person.
True.
You follow what I'm saying? So that those words, in fact, there's a saying that goes, what? There are certain things that do not come back, the sped arrow, the spoken words. You follow what I'm saying? And he cannot take that back. They spoke it, they found time to discuss it, and then they come up conveniently and expediently. And mind you, he was so careful and so smart, he didn't really admit that the voice we heard was his, leader Zosha. He didn't really admit. He implied.
He implied it,
You follow what I'm saying? And then even before then, when he promised to speak on the matter, he said that we will be exonerated, meaning to say his executive council. And then, the narrative was outside there that he what's the word that Dr. Rowley used there? He implicated the entire executive council. And then you're hearing after that, it wasn't an executive council meeting. No, but this is somebody of an executive council, a government that you have entrusted with tremendous power and authority. And you can't remember where you said what. And when you said what, as the case may be.
True.
An untrustworthy person that they're calling him, quote unquote. I don't like to use those terms in America because I believe we should be using our own terms and so on here. But we saw a videotape in the house that was transported to the house after with a certain person with a sketchy background. You know, I mean, no saying he's correcting the chief secretary and telling the chief secretary, hey, it was not executive council meeting, but
It was a
rather
political meeting.
it was a political meeting, and then the chief secretary laps that up and now brings that to the public,
Right.
and then hid in the cloak of parliamentary privilege.
Right.
And this is why some people are now asking the question: was the House misused
Right.
and parliamentary privilege misused, and is there or was there and is there misbehavior in the House? Is the House being used for the purpose for which the House was created?
Right.
And I have said on other platforms that you can ignore every sitting that takes place in the Tobago House of Assembly. They are all inconsequential. Nothing is coming out. When the House in Trinidad meets, they are meeting consequentially. You better pay attention. Some law might be made there, something might be altered there. But in the House here, what you have here is political debates between two warring factions, warring to become an executive. Not really warring to become an executive and to build a nation from the executive, from the legislature,
Right.
which is what really needs to be taking place. You know, so sometimes to discuss things like this really it can be wearisome,
Yeah.
and so on. I'm actually fed up with the politics in Tobago really, because the people of Tobago wanted more. I sensed that from the election campaign. I sensed the frustration after that. People wanted more, and they really wanted a regime that could have caused Tobago to self-actualize. And that's a major disappointment in Tobago. Rather now you're having the secretaries and them preoccupied with, not with policies, not with the weightier matters of the law. It's almost as though the capacity, not almost, the capacity. I mean, if you have to be honest and so on, you're almost coming on 2 years and you have no clear vision or direction going forward. You know, and I think Tobagonians deserve more than that, better than that. And I'll leave yesterday. The other panelists could come in.
So we moving along, and we as you spoke about the THA sitting, I just want to delve a little bit more into that. When it is that, when that was actually being read, I was in Trinidad attending another function, and the bacchanal was so hot. I was in a maxi with my phone to my ear, so I and my colleague behind me, and so we trying to hear, the two of us trying to hear what going on in the sitting, traveling on a maxi to the location that we were going to. It was so thing, and we were blown away as to what we heard in the sitting, and by that the chief secretary came and levied some allegations in the House. A whistleblower by the name of Akil Abdullah came forward, who would have been a member of the PDP, and also who is believed to have took the initial audio recording and released it, right? He released a whole conspiracy against the THA, including some high government members, including the TTPS, as well as the membership of the PNM in Tobago as well, right? He revealed a whole conspiracy to embarrass the THA and also to have them riled up in court matters for the next probably decade or so. All right? Right. So, seeing that Mr. Abdullah came forward with this bombshell, right? Which to me, when I heard it, was massive news. I think it was I think in my mind, Mr. Abdullah, if you are a whistleblower, you shouldn't be in this country right now. But it seems to me that he's still here taking questions or probably answering questions or whatever the case may be. Is he a credible source? Is he to be believed? All right. Well, we know that it was levied in the House, so they have parliament, they have privilege, right, inside of the House. Or actually, well, it is to be seen if they have privilege because it's being investigated by the Attorney General right now, right? But is the whistleblower, Mr. Akil Abdullah, to be believed? Is he credible, right? I want your opinions on that, guys.
But to say,
Let me just say it. That's how I see it. As a smoke screen. The reason why that individual was or that all right, so let me start again. If someone comes to you with credible information, you would not use the cloak of the House to bring that information to the forefront. The first thing that should be done is to take the information to the authorities, because that is a big scandal, you know. That is not no mediocre receipt, you know. All right? And if we have to look at the individual that brought the conversation, I would not trust his conversation at all. So I am seeing that as a plot. All right? That's a plot to change the narrative. That is the conversation. If we cannot change from that, that is the conversation. So they are going to use all different plots, plans, and people to carry out that agenda. And if you look at what took place, all right, the individual was not, he didn't know that he was being taped. All right? So, what really are you bringing to the House? What are you bringing to tell the people? All right? If the guy does not know that in the first place that he was not being taped, you feel he's willing to go on a witness stand and say, give evidence? All right? And then you're hearing through the grapevine that the conversation has changed. So how you start is how you're going to finish. You finish, you start with deceiving, and then you will continue trying to deceive the people. And this is clearly what is happening. So why use the cloak of the House? Why can't you come out in public and stand by what you are saying?
Is it that because something like that, in the way in which he brought forward, the information and the recording, obviously we did not see enough evidence in order to be able to hammer home any investigation to carry to any court or police on him. It was basically him saying what the plot is, right? Is it because it's just a conversation and so he does not have enough to bring forward to the courts, or is it that, again, what you said is a fabrication? What do you think it is?
That's a smoke screen, a fabrication. That is, we sit down and discuss with, here what's happening. This is what I'm going to do for you. I am going to get you out of that, all right? And shape the narrative. All right? So it is nothing nowhere to me that I'm seeing that it's factual, something that could take to the police, not even to take out of the House. It should stay right in the House there.
Mr. Roberts, what do you think?
I'm sitting here and I can feel Mr. James' frustration because I know what he likes to treat with and the serious matters, and this is a joke. And it's a kind of frustrating place to be. And everything that I think differently that was transcribed based on what Mr. Abdullah said, because I'm sure neither one of us here could have clearly understand anything he was saying in that the way it was taped.
It was difficult, yes.
But they transcribed it. So I don't know if there was in the transcription the narrative changed. That is one. And Mr. Wilson mentioned it. You taped this person unknowing and had the unmitigated goal to take that into the highest office in this country with a plot to basically destabilize the entire island of Trinidad and Tobago.
You trust in the government of Trinidad and Tobago, basically.
You implicated the police, the TTPS, the head of the TTPS, the head of the state, the prime minister,
Prime Minister, head of government.
right? And some key other persons. And all of them are senior counsel. So as you said it earlier, they will be well occupied with a number of law in courts for quite some time. So I that's not something that I can't take that as
anything
credible.
credible?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, it's unfortunate that the people of Tobago, in our hour of critical need, has to be swamped with this kind of event, as the case may be, because we should be dealing with the real issues that can really carry us forward. And here we are trying to work out whether or not Mr. Augustine is lying, whether Keith Rowley was lying, whether the issues, whether the tape there was genuine, and so on. Really, we should really be here fighting with that. You follow what I'm saying? But as an electrician, I learned about troubleshooting. And in troubleshooting, you leave out nothing. So as to whether the witness, the so-called witness, is credible or not, the witness is not the issue. You have to troubleshoot all the sayings and so on, because you run the risk as a good detective. If you say, well, the witness is not credible, and you forget everything the witness says, you run the risk of coming to a faulty conclusion. So it is said, there is no harm in considering what was said. One of the things that they have to be really good, really, really good, that he will say that Mr. Dennis was there in the meeting, Dr. Rowley was there, Dr. Rowley's lawyer was there, he was there, and then you have and
Police
Dr.
commissioner
Rowley
on the
called
phone.
Police commissioner
Police commissioner.
on the phone. Right? So that to come up with that, and no shred of it is true. Well, here, Mr. Augustine, they have to be really, really, really good to put that together. Let me say also that I don't believe Mr. Augustine, the words that he said when he said that the gentleman did not know that he was being taped. I think it's part of the strategy. He has to say that. If you really consider the whole thing, he has no choice. Because how else would he go to the house with it? You know what I'm saying? So he has to tell the public
That he was on our way.
that the guy was on our way. But I don't believe.
Under the guise that you were being
Yes.
deceived.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't believe that. I absolutely believe, when I looked at it, the responses, the whole thing, the whole theater of it, I believe that the guy knew that he was being taped. And as a matter of fact, I think he went there for that reason, because there's a trust issue now and a believability issue now going on between the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary. One is right or one is wrong. And they have that fight going on for the hearts and mind of the population. And hitherto, Dr. Rowley appeared to have been winning that war. Not that any of them necessarily is telling the truth. Because these guys, especially the Prime Minister, they are very experienced in what they do. And they can craft things and get you to believe. In fact, the Prime Minister has been proven several occasions when he promised, in fact, when you go back to the Petro-Chin issue, when he said, and in case you went to the fridge or in the kitchen, in case you miss it, let me repeat that we are not closing down Petro-Chin. And there are other issues you see going around on Facebook, but the greatness about those things is that when they come to you with such confidence when they're ready to misinform.
Right.
So I am, in terms of believing either of them, I'm not really a fan of the credibility of either gentleman, because I find it, imagine that you can tell the population when it was expedient to do so,
Yeah.
because they believe, because apart from parliamentary privilege, there's also cabinet privilege, which we don't really discuss. So that information, a cabinet meeting is protected.
True.
You follow what I'm saying? By convention. It may not be law in Trinidad and Tobago, but in Canada and America and those things, a cabinet meeting, executive council meetings, they are protected.
Yeah.
And I think that was their defense. That was their defense to say, and the advisors would have told them that, to say that it was an executive council meeting. You follow what I'm saying? And so that, again, if that was the case, then he was right. If that the exercise, if they only did that to see, in order to protect themselves, to hide under the convention of executive council or cabinet privilege, then they were not being honest. And then to come back, no. And what I'm saying, all of this is going on, and there's no apology. It's almost as though we are taking for granted. There's no accountability. There's no respect for the people. You are there because the people have placed their sacred trust. And especially in a difficult time, they have placed that trust in you. And then you come back now and flippantly, you just say, well, all right. The guy say, well, the guy telling us, hey,
You came up with a
it
real...
was not a executive council meeting. It's such a big issue. He's telling us, the government, you are not having a governmental meeting.
Yeah.
You are not having a cabinet meeting.
Right.
Don't you remember?
You reminded him.
I was sitting next to you there.
Right.
And that was the meeting you had.
Right.
And then now we
we populist. Like some.
could I find any credibility what is I mean, to be honest, have to come to a point of an honest appraisal. To be honest, have to come to a point, because the office that these guys are operating in is not theirs. Those offices belong to the people, and the people have reposed.
You bring up a nice term there, accountability.
Yeah.
Right? And as much as, and I have a concern, right? I have a concern, right? When it comes to the application of accountability for people in this country, not just Tobago, this country.
Yeah.
We have seen, when it was last week or the week before, where senior THA officials were being investigated in a very drastic manner that I must put across, right? Personal effects being searched, devices being seized, and XYZ. Of course, they conducted it through the law because they had a warrant for those things. All right. However, throughout my entire adult life, studying, being observant in politics, I have never seen the TTPS move so drastically with senior public officials before. All right? There are allegations across the board with this administration, previous administration,
yes.
in Tobago and in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Right? But I have never seen the TTPS. And the thing is, I am not against the TTPS doing what they're supposed to do. And they need to investigate this, obviously. But where was this verve and rigor before?
Yeah.
Right? So I wanted to ask the panel, is accountability for everybody, or is it for a select few? We want to pong the current admin here because they get tied up in some hot water here, right? Admittedly so. But is accountability for everybody, or is it just for a select few people?
Well, I would say Marlene McDonald. Where is she now?
Well, I am not sure, she's not in jail. I can tell her that.
Darrell Smith.
Darrell
Where is he
Smith,
now?
I heard Darrell Smith recently got a post. Darrell Smith recently got a state post.
But the thing is that they will go and clear your name and come back, right?
I guess so.
So they were investigated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what transpired may be another. What the final conclusion may be another story by itself, because I don't know the details of my head. But there are cases where this guy from the United National Lee,
David Lee,
charged $1 million bail he's on. But he's in the cabinet still, right? So the situations have happened, and I guess it's to be measured against. For you to be subjected to that level of interrogation, it's against your behavior. They didn't just come from nowhere, and you warranted that on yourself by sitting down and plotting to use public funds for propaganda. No, we didn't do that. You did that. And unfortunately, it came out. And that's the only reason why we are aware, is because it came out. So if it didn't come out, where we would have been now? So there are situations where it happened across the board. And I think once misbehavior in public office is recognized, persons should be held accountable. No matter when it happens, how it happens, no matter how big or small, when you assume public office, you assume that responsibility to conduct yourself in a particular way. You're holding the highest office on the land, and you have a responsibility. And we all are conscious beings, and we know what is right, and we know what is wrong. We inherently know that. And as my colleague said, let the chips fall where they may.
All right. Is accountability for everyone, Mr. Wilson?
Okay.
You think that?
Accountability. Let's look at the facts. Now, under the PNM government, and I remember you saying that you have not seen the police move in this, hastily way and stuff.
Drastic, yeah.
You should say drastic. I say hastily.
All right, okay.
All right. That is not definitely true, right? What we have, and we could look at the past, where we had Marlene McDonald, Franklin Cannon, and Eric Williams. Sorry, not Eric Williams. All arrested in a quick space of time. The investigation started. It was brought to a conclusion where charges were laid. And they were all under the PNM administration. So I am saying here now that if we are looking at accountability should be across the floor. And when we say across the floor, we mean in all governmental, all high office holders. And what has transpired in Tobago is nothing new to what has transpired previously. And if we really look and dive into the history of it, we will see all the facts that we could go on. And I urge you to do that. Because that is the only way we could come to a decision that what is transpiring is actually fair. Because it has already been done, a precedent has been set. Okay? So accountability is for all. We have to look at where the accountability starts and where it ends. The assemblymen are accountable to the area represented. As they are now in office, holding divisional posts in the THA, they are accountable to the chief secretary. I would have heard this conversation already, and I'm going to put the question out there. Who is the chief secretary accountable to?
The chief secretary should be accountable. Well, is accountable to the head of state, who is the president of Trinidad and Tobago.
He's also accountable to the people of Tobago. he is supposed to be acting fairly. So I am saying that this is something that has already been done. There were persons that were charged. They were removed from office. And as my colleague would have said, that you go and clear your name and come back.
Clear your name and come back.
Yeah, clear your name and come back.
All right.
Remember it's allegations, eh?
Yes, it is.
That ensue charges.
Yes, it is.
And once you would have been found in the court, by the court, all right, not guilty, then you have cleared yourself. And I'm saying that let us look at what transpired. Let us accept it for what it is. I know it's a bit harsh because the first time it will have ever happened in Tobago. And, you know, I could understand that. But me personally, I would allow the TTPS to do their jobs and conclude the investigation, and we could now move forward. Let the chips fall where they may.
Mr. James, do you have anything to say about the accountability of the senior officials?
Well, the accountability I like to see is that elected officials and high officials, generally speaking, account to the people. Because in my judgment, Dr. Winston Murray taught me a lesson years ago. And he said, James, the people in any country are sovereign. So we will see in the Constitution there, the president is in a position where the president is sovereign there. But that sovereignty is really transferred by the people. Right. This is all because of the people. Yeah. So they will say in America, government of the people, for the people, and by the people.
Because it's only because of the people, that's why you get the power.
Definitely, really. You follow what I'm saying?
You recognize the power.
Definitely. And this is what I would like to see. But I think at Tobago here, given the level of desperation of some people because they have starved for so long, and many people wanted an alternative to the PNM. Fairly so, because granted the history of Tobago and given the struggle and so on. And we have to be very careful that in our obsession to keep the PNM out, that we are not creating a dictator in Tobago. That's a real issue. Because when something is wrong, it is wrong. This has nothing to do with PNM, IDA, or anybody else. A thing must stand or fall based on its own merits. Right and wrong must stand on the merit of the issue itself. And we must tell Fali Augustine and his executive that they were wrong. They must not have any doubt about that. And my support for Fali should not have anything with my fear for keeping the PNM out. It has nothing to do with that. PNM must stand or fall on its own relevance to Tobago. Mr. Augustine must stand or fall based on his own relevance or vision and capability for Tobago. You follow what I'm saying? But I'm seeing a trend here with all this narrative business and so on, that if we are not careful, and become happen to see the person will sense it too, that we don't create a little baby duck here, which will grow into a papa duck here. We have to be very careful. We're not helping ourselves. I want all these people to understand. We are not helping ourselves. We are not helping the gentleman when we lie to ourselves and lie to him to say, well, hey, you have done okay in this matter and you are doing okay. Right. And don't compare yourself with PNM. Compare yourself with the vision that is necessary for Tobago. Are we moving at the correct pace of development here? What are the measuring sticks?
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? Right. This is what I want to see here. I must say, I will be forever uncomfortable with Trinidad forces coming up into Tobago. I'm registering that. So I've said it before. I am uncomfortable with Trinidad culture coming up into Tobago to search Tobagonian homes.
Would you be more comfortable if it was independent?
But even that I'll be comfortable with.
Independent.
But what that speaks to also is how vulnerable Tobago is. That we can't even investigate ourselves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that will be the kind of concern I will have.
I've always heard Mr. Jim share that position on a number, apart from the forces, a number of other institutions. But
True.
I would always, as we say, we need to build institutions in Tobago.
Beautiful.
So until we start building the necessary institutions, so that we don't have to be subjected to that. But what are we doing? Are we building the necessary institutions
Right now?
That's an excellent point, you know. And this is why I said the main goal of the THA right now, the legislature, forget the executive. The legislature is where the transformation has to take place in Tobago. We have to build institutions. Because if in the absence of that, we don't want Trinidad to come.
More of the same.
We don't want Trinidad to come. But we're not building any institutions. But Trinidad, we reject you. We reject the colonial institutions, so to speak. But we're not building and replacing. We're not repealing and we're not replacing. We're not building our own. And so then when we act now, we are acting anarchically. And that's what is going on in Tobago. Because we want to reject, and let me tell you something, it doesn't work that way. Whether you're in a colonial system or not, you can't just get up one day and say we disregard all those laws. You know? It doesn't work that way. There has to be reform and transformation. There has to be savings for law, if you really understand constitutional law and so on. There are clauses where they call savings for law, because something has to hold and obtain in the meantime. Because if there's nothing there, you end up in anarchy. And what's happening now, I observe certain trends with this administration here. Without building the institution and so on, they want to reject what exists. But you're just operating in a vacuum. And I'm saying that is anarchy. And that in itself belies the kind of unreadiness and immaturity of those that are in government today.
I wanna close off the show by asking one final question. I have a saying, I pick it up from somebody. Only the paranoid will survive, right? And so every time I hear these things and these conspiracies, right, there is some part of me that gives credence to some of what is said. Because we know that obviously I can't take everything at face value, what is said by face value, right? But things necessarily, and we know things don't appear out of thin air, right?
Yeah, good point.
All right.
Good point.
So in my thoughts and considering this thing, what if some form of what the whistleblower said is true? What does it then mean for the future of Tobago? I know that's a heavy question, eh? That's a heavy one, but I want to let you consider it.
In 1 minute?
Right? What if some form, and I tend to sit down and I think and I put on my paranoid cap. What if some form of what the whistleblower said is true? It might not be 100% true, but there might be some truth in it. What does it then mean for the integrity and the future of the House of Assembly? Anybody could answer. I know it's a heavy question, but anybody could answer.
I don't think it's just the integrity of the assembly. It's if you remember, the man implicated the entire national, both the assembly and the
government,
central government.
Yeah,
right? And as you said, I say we deal with matters as they come. There's a saying, to have too much information is to be misinformed, and to have too little information is to be uninformed. We have to have the right amount of information so that you can make conscious decisions. Make decisions based on truth. And you can't, you find yourself in a bind trying to sift through lies, searching for truth. Where truth is lies cannot exist. They can't be together. They cannot exist together.
Light and darkness.
Right? Yeah. You can't have light. Matter of fact, darkness is a delusion. Darkness is the absence of light. Right? So, and I know that there will be persons like that. What if some of that is really true? And if some of it is true, it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate that for a small country trying to move forward, this is where we are. Right? And I would say it is unfortunate if any of that is true.
Is any of it is true? Okay. Mr. James.
Well, as I said before,
Heaviness.
as I said before, as an electrician, you rule out nothing. If it is presented there, you have to consider it. We'll be really, really fools to just disregard everything the gentleman would have said. It would be very, very, very foolish. One of the things that we must also consider, and I'm not standing here nor there on the matter. I'm saying that everything must be considered. Right? Now, if, as he said, Mr. Dennis was there, Dr. Rowley, Dr. Rowley's lawyer. Now, hear the thing with this. Ansel or Mr. Dennis wouldn't see, and one might say cannot see, that he cannot set up Dr. Rowley there. Because I think the objective of the releasing the house was targeting Dr. Rowley. You know what I'm saying? Because you had this back and forth between Dr. Rowley and the chief secretary. No, and if Dr. Rowley comes out and he put his political career on the line, if any of that was true, you know what I'm saying? All that is psychology to it. All of that can be considered psychology and safe psychology, because Mr. Dennis cannot, if Dr. Rowley having come out and said that, Mr. Dennis cannot deny that. No, the lawyer would not deny either, because he's representing the Prime Minister. You follow what I'm saying? What can happen though, TSTT or Digicel, whoever, can track back the date with the phone call.
With the phone call to
the
commissioner.
To the commissioner. You follow what I'm saying? They can do that. And even that may not be sufficient, but they can do that. Right? But I'm saying, given, for instance, was one of the previous elections, Dr. Rowley said that the PNM is can't remember the exact words, I'll paraphrase. Maybe this gentleman remember, or you, when you're saying that the PNM is a kind of mafia organization, and if you leave and you go out and you squeal on us, what we'll do to you. And he talk about the Mafisico. You remember that? You remember that too?
No, sir.
You remember
I remember the word.
the Mafisico.
Yeah, I remember
right?
the word.
And the keys of something to the Kuno Satra, some kind of foolishness. Like, I'm sure these guys remember. You follow what I'm saying? Was it one of the elections and then? Many people in the
Many
audience,
things were said. Many things were said.
remember. So he said that's how they keep on another secret. And if you go out and you squeal, what they will do to you, whether he was being genuine or he was in the spirit of the electioneering, is another matter. I'm just saying what was said. Those are spoken words, and we said earlier. Like the spirit cannot come back. But Dr. Rowley did say those words. I'm saying I'm paraphrasing. But there was a few elections ago when he did say that. So I'm saying, given the culture of the PNM, they don't squeal. And if Dr. Rowley comes out and say he puts his political career on the line, Ansel Dennis doesn't dare, if he wants to survive politically, he doesn't dare come and contradict the argument. And you have lawyer-client privilege again too. So you follow what I'm saying? So I'm saying, for me, I'm not saying yeah or nay, but I disregard nothing in regard to the future of the House Assembly. That I said, the House Assembly is distracted. The politics, as it is being led into Tobago from the House there and the executive, is a great distraction and a great disservice. We are wasting time, and we are not moving hastily to our emancipation. Nobody gives you emancipation. You have to emancipate yourself. Nobody gives you freedom. You have to build your freedom. Freedom is institutional. And just before I wrap up here, the thing about law is that if you are carrying out policy, once you have the executive, it must be backed up by legislative work. Because if you're making policies, some of the policies that you make may endanger people and could disadvantage. I may make a policy, maybe disadvantage this gentleman here. What is his recourse? If there is no law supporting that, dealing with that, how does he get recourse? So I'm just operating an executive. It is dangerous. As we used to say in draft, when you play in draft, we say dangerful. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If you're making policy goes side by side with law, and then you end up with the third arm, you have to have an arbiter, a judiciary, to interpret and that kind of.
But that's why we are government.
That's why you have.
That's basically government.
And that's what we really call true emancipation.
Mr. Wilson, so what are you thinking? Paranoid cap. You have a paranoid cap like me? I have plenty paranoid caps.
What are emotions? It's an emotion. It's an external force that apply. So if you not stop it, an external force could be wind, could be a pebble, or whatever the case may be, derails the course. Derails the course. So I'm going to stick to derailing. All right? I think that it's a clear plot to derail the thinking of the citizens of Tobago, and I will reiterate that based on what you would have asked, if that is actually factual, then meaning that some sort of it is right, so not right, is found to be truthful, then there's another topic for discussion, for a lengthy discussion. Our main focus really and truly should be on enhancing Tobago, carrying Tobago forward, finding out who Tobago is, finding out where or what is needed to make Tobago this great island. And everything that is being purported and put out there is actually holding us back. So let's get to that point. Let's get to that point so that we can advance Tobago.
All right. I have, regrettably so, right? I have to wrap up tonight's program. All right, we have done our time in studio here tonight, and so we move on to the matters of the day. All right, but before I go, I want to thank all the panelists for coming out and having this enlightening discussion with us tonight live in studio. Gentlemen, it was nice having this discussion with you. All right, I hope to see you guys in studio again. Don't be a stranger. All right, guys, Tobago, I hope that you have a wonderful emancipation holiday tomorrow. Enjoy it, go to the beach, relax, enjoy your freedom. All right, and reflect on the benefits that your freedom has given you. All right, my name is Edison Thomas. Until next week, I bid you adieu. Have a good night.
On this one.